Let's do it on three. 1, 2, 3.
One half a step too late or too early, you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. On this team, we fight for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch. Because we know that's the difference between winning and losing.
Mean in the Green. It's right here for you.
That's football, guys.
Go Mean Green.
Welcome to the GoMeanGreen.com Barbershop Podcast, dedicated to students, alumni, and fans that truly bleed green.
Don't give them room to breathe.
Follow us on Twitter at GoMeanGreen and visit our website, GoMeanGreen.com.
Love that.
Gotta love it, baby.
Here we go.
Now, your hosts of the GoMeanGreen.com Barbershop Podcast, Evan, Harry, and Ashton.
Hello, and welcome to the GoMeanGreen.com Barbershop Podcast. This is Evan.
This is Harry.
This is Ashton.
This is JD.
And we are on episode number 240, and 240, nice even number, a win. I wish it would have been a little more assertive of a win, but a win is a win. After it was over, we were texting, and I was going to say a bunch of, and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to let it go. It was a win. Let's move on to the next week. We needed that. We needed something.
Oh, it was, yeah. That's an understatement to say the least. I mean, there was talk on the board, prior to this win about there were names like Todd Dodge getting thrown out there. I mean, it was getting pretty depressing. So you got to say this about Eric. He has a good sense of timing because, boy, after another loss and then having to wait, with the bye week coming up, having 2 weeks, being 0-3 would have been absolutely just a nightmare. But he came through. I mean, I'm really happy for him. That was a big win. That sort of changes the whole positioning of where this season can go. It wasn't perfect, and I was, like I said in my article, bite my nails out the last quarter. I mean, it was just ridiculous how much they came back. But we did win the game, and it was a big win. Whenever you can beat La Tech on the road, that's pretty big.
So, JD, go ahead, Ashton.
Sorry. No, sorry. I was going to bring – Harry just kind of said at the end, I believe Seth only won one time in Ruston. And, he had a pretty good coaching record at North Texas, so like it's big we just don't play well in Ruston, we just don't. I don't really know why. I think Dan only won one time there. Seth only won one time, even though we had those years where that was a team that he sometimes couldn't beat. So a road game in Ruston, ugly or not, which it was at times, it was it's a win, like Evan. To everybody who heard Evan talk a second ago, like he's not lying. He started texting and then he stopped in a word and then a bunch of dots and said, "Never mind, a win's a win." So he was probably going to say more, which I'd love to hear about it. But it's a win's a win, and he adjusted, which we'll get into. But he had to win coming off that FIU game. Like that was like a must-win game, and we didn't talk about it last week, but this was a must-win game for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, and like you said, Ruston's not an easy place to win, and I think this La Tech team is probably not the La Tech of the Skip Holtz era, but they're still a good team. They beat FIU, the team we lost to. So going into the game, I wasn't super confident. I don't think many people were. But yeah, being able to go in there, and we've seen adjustments on, I feel like all three phases of the ball. I know we'll talk about more in a minute, but I think that was something that was a bright spot for me, that it seemed like we saw improvements. Everything that we kind of talked about, from the Cal game, poor rushing attack, punting was horrible. Defense was god awful. All three phases improved Saturday night and was key to victories. They all played a part. So, like I said, to bring back a Seth mantra, in all three phases, we got better and came away with a W. So, yeah. Cheers.
At the end of the day.
That's right.
The day.
So, the first three quarters were up 30-14. And the biggest concern going into this game was the defense. That, to me, it's just been god awful. We just get beat time and time again, but we held them. We were up 30-14. Things going in the fourth quarter were rosy. Let's talk about the good things. Where did you start to see it kind of gelling a little bit, at least for those first three quarters, where you felt like things might have started looking up there?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that stood out to me, and I made a post on Go Mean Green about it, was for everybody who was watching, the first quarter we come out in a 4-man front, and that was something that we were successful with Coach Bennett. And, we come out and have 2, 3 and outs super quick. The offense got in the red zone, didn't come away with touchdowns, and that's where I felt like eventually that was going to come back and bite us because there was a chance we could have easily been up 21-0. But, yeah, I mean, the defense did go back to 3-man fronts and kind of bounce back and forth. I think that's something we're probably going to see the rest of the season, multiple looks. Hopefully the 3-man front can come up, and we still struggled heavily with the 3-man front, but seeing that multiple top look, I think it's going to be beneficial, especially as we move forward in the year.
I think that the adjustment, the fact that he made an adjustment is huge, right? Like the fact that they went into the game and they said, okay, we need to change something. And it's his third game. So I will give, Eric all the credit right there because, again, he's not a first-time head coach. So it's not like he's never seen some kind of adjustment or had to do it before. But I think sometimes a new coach to that program, whatever program that is, can just be stubborn and be like, this is what we're doing. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And we're not going to sway from that just yet because this is my system or this is whatever system we're going with. And he decided, no, that's not the case. And I'm going to abandon it. Maybe not abandon it, but I'm going to change it because this is what I think we need to do. And that's great. I mean, the fact that there was an adjustment at all is a willingness to adapt. And that's great.
Yeah. And I put that on the board that, in the past, we've seen North Texas coaches that would just keep banging their head against the wall. And, this is what we're doing. We're a 3-man front or whatever. Even sometimes on offense, I go back to the McCarney area. It was like you just kept doing the same thing, and it wasn't working. So I think this is a young coaching staff. I think some of them are learning as they go on some stuff, but the willingness to make adjustments was kind of made me optimistic moving forward that they can definitely change and make some adjustments when needed.
And the coaching staff deserves credit for just like Ashton said, making adjustments. Those were key. But I also think we've got to give some credit to the players. I mean, Kevin Wood is back. I mean, he had a huge game, 9 tackles. If he can play like that the rest of this season, then we've got a shot to win some games. And then I would also say, Mason Richards, the guy had disappeared. He was a star player for us on defense last year, and he had disappeared in those first 2 games. And maybe it was moving back to the 4-3. Maybe it was he just was extremely motivated this game. But he had a great sack. That he had some great tackles. So I think there was some personnel that stepped up and answered the call too, and they deserve some credit about this victory as well.
And I just want to say one more thing. I see we brought up Phil Bennett. I did talk to him last week. He was on the podcast and things. And the reason I kind of brought him on was to kind of talk about when you're bringing in a new system, it takes time. I mean, I don't think we remember that when Phil came in, there was the first 7 games we were 1-6, and we were giving up 46 something points a game. And Phil Bennett's, in my eyes, one of the best defensive coordinators the last 25 years in college football. And it took him a little bit to get the team adjusted, get them down to knowing the scheme. And like these things sometimes it works. Sometimes you see teams come in week 1, light the world on fire, but sometimes it takes there's an adjustment period.
And let's all face it though, we all came in here, we're all pissed off because we lost to Cal the way we lost to Cal. And there was no proof that we should have beat Cal in the grand scheme of things, right? Like there's nothing that says like, well, they're coming in here and we should beat them, just because Eric's got a good track record as a head coach and he's an offensive mind and this and that, like all those things were set. So it doesn't just translate into like he should win. I mean, I think that we all just got a little bit ahead of ourselves and thinking that he's supposed to win that game. Yeah, but we all like to win, sure. But my point is that, to sit there and like the pitchforks to come out and be like, we need to get rid of him after just a couple games. The FIU game was bad. That's bad. But that was his second game at North Texas. So, while I wasn't happy, I never said fire the guy. I never wanted to fire the guy because I think that you gotta give him a little bit of time. And I don't think this La Tech, he didn't win the conference the other day, but at the same time, that's a good step in the right direction. He's 3 games in now. He made a change at both quarterback and defensive front, defensive scheme that both worked. And yeah, La Tech's not Cal. La Tech's not, a great team, but they're still, we don't
They're
win
still La Tech. They're still La Tech.
We don't.
And I tell you, the way this game started, the way the defense is playing, I don't know if you guys realize this, you probably did, but at the end of the first quarter, La Tech had 4 yards.
Yeah.
They had 4 yards. Their first drive was 5 yards, and then their second drive was -1. And that took it to the end of the first quarter. I mean, we only had 10 points out of the deal having to go for a field goal, but, you can't ask better performance out of the defense. Now, it was a tale of 2 halves. Where did we start to stumble? Did Louisiana Tech just really make great adjustments towards the end there? And did we just lose steam? What happened?
I mean, I think tackling is still a big problem. And I think, and maybe JD can add more to this, but it seemed like there was a little bit of a prevent type defense mentality going into that last quarter. It was like we got this big lead. So now we're going to play. I noticed the defensive backs were playing more off the receivers, and it was just which is the worst thing to ever do when you've got a lead, by the way. But it was bad. I mean, it shouldn't have been that close. And thank goodness, the kicker came in and made a huge clutch kick there at the end because, I mean, that game could have gone either way. But I think I felt like the defense just loosened up or something there at the end, and it was almost a disaster.
It's typical. You're up and you're trying to not let them. It's typical to go into prevent. And you see in the NFL. I mean, I saw it yesterday at some games where you're wondering why the hell are they doing this? They're only up by a touchdown. Like they don't need to go into prevent. Like it seems like every time you go into prevent, big things happen, and it's one missed tackle because of the way that the zone is or the blanket or whatever. There's one missed tackle away from a guy breaking it or a guy falls down. And yeah, so I've never been a big fan of don't change your scheme when it's working all day. I mean, we got outscored, in the fourth quarter, like 23-10, right? I mean, it wasn't a great fourth quarter. And it also just, it just happens, but we're not tackling. We're just not tackling. I mean, that's still an issue. Unfortunately, it's a pretty big issue. It's one of those things where, it's kind of a necessary thing as long as running the football, which we did do. So we traded one, we baby steps, maybe.
So JD,
somebody comment.
Yeah, no, I'm going to switch it up a little bit here. We talked about the defense. We've seen what they did. Everybody knows we were ranked last after the first week. I don't know what the new ranking is. It has to be better. But that fourth quarter didn't help. Where, at the beginning of the game, I was like, wow, we could really jump if they've got 4 yards after the first quarter. It could have really gone even better. But, hey, like I said, it's a win. JD, Chandler Rogers, some people are like, all right, we got our guy. Do you feel like we got our guy now? Do you feel like this is the kind of the little the secret pill that we needed to change the season a little bit?
I mean, I feel a lot better about our quarterback situation than I have probably since a quarterback named Mason Fine. I mean, I feel really confident. He just seemed like he was in control. He was poised, never got crazy, never got, never looked like he was shaken or shook. We talked to Coach Morris after the game, and, when La Tech went down there and scored the tying touchdown, Morris went and talked to Rogers. Rogers gave him a wink and said, "We got this, coach." So, I mean, like, to me, he's done it before. He was a successful quarterback at ULM for a team that doesn't have near the talent that North Texas does. But the main thing is, and the thing that, even talking to Coach Bennett the other day was, North Texas, the main thing is just, having a quarterback that can take care of the ball and not put the ball in bad situations. And I feel like that's something he did great Saturday night. If they can carry on, moving into the season, there's going to be some games later on that we probably didn't think we had a chance to win. If you can just have a quarterback that takes care of the ball, makes the wide open passes that you're supposed to make, it's going to give you a good chance to win. Like I said, a lot of games that you probably shouldn't be in.
Right. And obviously the real clutch point on this whole performance, over 300 yards by Chandler Rogers, was in the fourth quarter with not much time left. They went 61 yards to get the field goal attempt. We thought they were going to have to try to make it from midfield, and it looked like it might be, but that drive at the end, he did pretty well on it.
Yeah. And like I said, poised and just it, to me, my main takeaway was like, I'm on the couch watching the game. When they score that touchdown, I'm like, here we go again. To me, it didn't seem like the team. I mean, it kind of reminded me of, it wasn't as, time consuming or whatever you want to talk about as the UTSA drive. But to me, that was the first time since then that I felt like a North Texas team, like they had the confidence that we were going to take the ball down and score. Like the game wasn't out of reach. We didn't blow it. It wasn't over with. And I think that comes with a quarterback that's played a lot of snaps at this level and seems like he's got a pretty good handle on the offense and seems like he's got quite a bit of support from the team at the moment.
Are you guys surprised about the play of the running backs? Did you think they'd factor in more, or this is about what we thought we'd see? Obviously, we had a day he went over 150 yards, but or almost 150 yards. But are you surprised that we're not seeing bigger numbers? Were you hoping to see bigger numbers? Or are you glad we're kind of sharing the love with the receivers?
I was hoping for more by this time out of the running backs than I've seen. Saturday was a good step in the right direction. I think you needed the running backs to step up because the quarterback play has been so erratic. And I'm not going to just jump on a quarterback bandwagon right now because I've just saw one game against La Tech. Everything else has been pretty crappy. So it is what I feel like the running backs had to do something because we're not getting good quarterback play. Or we haven't gotten quality quarterback play. Again, just a couple games, so they got to figure out the scheme and the system and everything like that. But running the ball is a little bit different than passing in a scheme. It might be easier to build your running scheme before you build all your route trees. And I give that a little bit longer to develop. But I got a text from a buddy on Sunday that said, why didn't we ever start Chandler Rogers originally? Well, he didn't come out and guns blazing against Cal, and so what were you where's the proof there? Now the La Tech game's great and everything, and Stone didn't play that game, so there's nothing to it's not like he didn't get benched that game, so I don't know how he would have played. Probably just past couple games would have been great if you're judging by history at that point. But I think that the running game had to get going because we're not getting that. And the running game is going to open up the passing game. So if we get the running backs going, then we could have quarterbacks that's over 300 and just play it safe. And we've been talking about a stable of running backs for, a month now. So we need to actually use them.
And I think one key thing we need to touch on as far as getting the running game going, they moved Fabici outside from tackle back into guard to give him a little more depth inside. And then Jet Duncan went back outside to tackle where he played most of the year last year. And I think that, to me, it seemed like got a little more push in the middle, and maybe that could have been kind of helping get the running game going.
Thanks a lot, JD. That was what I was just about to say.
Sorry, sir.
Finally, you had a great remark.
Actually, I was stealing that from him. He knows that, so that's kind of an inside joke. But that was perfect timing because I was like, I'm going to get to say this. But he's right. We talk about adjustments, and that was an adjustment that the average fan probably doesn't, but that made such a huge difference. If you watch the game, the replay, for me, the holes were just way bigger, in terms of the offensive line. And not to say that Day didn't have a great game, he did, but it was a lot easier for him compared to Cal and what we saw at FIU on the road because of those adjustments they made on the offensive line. So that was a big move for for Eric and Coach Cooper on the offensive line. That was a great adjustment.
So I'm looking in the chat room here, and I see KJ just mentioned defense is still last at 543 yards. Nevada's next at 524. Please tell me that's the old numbers. That's not updated, right?
I mean,
Really? Is it that
what
bad?
page are you
Because
on? What page are you on?
I'm just looking at the chat room. Somebody put it in there. The
Oh.
stats. We're still dead last at 543 yards. But on this game, they had how many yards did they have? 432 total offense.
That would make sense because Cal was like 680 something. What was it? 680?
God, it takes forever to pull that number down. Good grief.
I mean, I remember. So the Cal game, when I went back and looked at the stats, you know what the stats, like not the points. Well, actually, almost the points. What maybe think of the FAU game, where at the end of we came back in on the first FAU game, the one that we got our asses just handed to us on a platter. Seth made multiple comments that next week at the meeting, and he was like, at practice he said something like, keep messing around, you're going to get 800 yards shoved right up you again, and that's what that Cal game felt like. So yeah, if it's 6 something, high sixes, and we got down to the mid fours, well, yeah, 550 is still kind of in the middle there somewhere.
Yeah, that's so that makes sense. And yeah, he just verified that's through 3 games. That's just sad. And really, we feel good after that game, and we're 1-2, being last in defense and still 1-2, kind of a testament that the offense is at least clicking somewhere. What does this put us here? We got an off week. We got time to lick our wounds, move back. Do we have any major injuries? Has anything popped up? I'm trying to think back to the game on who would gone out on the game. How are we looking going into the bye week?
Ragsdale's out for the year. That was
Ragsdale.
Well,
go ahead. I was going to say Ragsdale's the big one. Yeah, he's out for the year. So, but that we still got 3 good running. Yeah, we still got 3 good running backs. Maybe 4 if you count Farrar, but I'm not. Are you guys aware, JD? You would know any other big injuries? I haven't heard of anything.
I haven't heard anything. That was the one that was.
I just didn't remember during the game seeing anybody else go out that would have made an impact. I mean, that I can remember that looked serious. So that's why I was bringing it up. So I mean, we've got the off week. And then we come back against ACU in Denton, and you kind of feel like that's a game we should be able. It'd be a good game to come back from. So many times after a bye week, we come back for a big game, and we're all fired up for it. Big opponent, and we have some issues. So playing Abilene Christian, I think, plays well into this. That we should be able to do it. I hope the announcers are better on this than the Louisiana Tech video department rolled out on that game the other day, because there was some really awkward moments on that broadcast.
To say the least. To say the least.
Yeah, I felt like several of the games, the one in Florida too. It was the one in Florida was just the color guy, and I can't remember his name, was just kind of like, wow. Play-by-play seemed to be okay, but the color was it just was all over the place. Yeah. So I'm ready for.
I didn't hear the FIU game. I was out. I was like out of pocket that night, and I was mobile. But my buddy, admin on the board, basically gave me the most in-depth play-by-play I've ever received via text throughout the game. I mean, he was just going at it. It was pretty awesome. I was getting like everything. Got up slow. Oh, yeah. Okay, he's fine. Like little things like that, and then some commentary like this shit sucks or that was a good play, at times, which was nice. But yeah, I so I don't know about the FIU game, but the La Tech, the announcing that was
having their
president ESPN Plus, man.
Well, I saw the president segment was bizarre. And you know what? We're making fun of this, but you remember the days when it really was just somebody with like a webcam up there, and that's all. To get a better angle, they would just tilt the webcam, and at that point, I would have paid $10 to see the audiovisual club put together a game via webcam. I was fine with that when we would spend the money, and so I'm making fun of it, but I'm glad we had them. But yeah, the president segment was bizarre when they had the president on there, and you're asking him stuff that was just. It was so awesome.
Yeah. The best part about all this is that we're talking about video production, and there's about a 2-second delay on Evan, at least on my camera, when he's talking and when we're hearing. It's like a second and a half, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If I don't move my mouth or something like that, it's just going to freak you out. Okay, I won't say anything. Is that how we're gonna go?
There's a really good, like, right? I'm not crazy, right? There's a delay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I see a little delay.
Yeah, Evan, it's like about a maybe.
I'm using Wi-Fi. I had my other computer plugged in, but since I got a wacky setup in here. All right, so Abilene Christian, we've got Navy. Navy's not going to be a fun game. What are you guys thinking for the rest of the season with what we've got, what we're rolling out there? Are we going to make any change in predictions on what we think, how this season's going to end up? How many more games are we going to pull out here? Obviously, UTSA, some of the other teams are having seasons that we didn't anticipate, but what are your thoughts here? I'm not looking forward to SMU on November 10th.
No,
and I don't like the early bye week either.
I like the bye week because it gives us a chance to work on tackling. I mean, I would just do tackle drills for 2 straight weeks. That's what this team needs more than anything else. But I would also say UTSA losing, I hate to, take a dig at UTSA, but
no, you don't.
Actually, you're right. I don't. But them losing that game, I was like loving seeing Army for 2 reasons. One, because Army is supposedly going to replace SMU. That looks like that may be a done deal in the AAC. So I think they're going to make a good addition. I didn't like when we dropped Army off the schedule. I thought that was a big mistake because I thought they filled up the stadium pretty good. But anyway, I know there were reasons.
I thought it was a great. It's always
a game though.
Well, but you know what? Man. I love to go up to Army, to West Point to watch. It's a great trip up there. You go to New York and the beautiful drive, especially if it's late in the season when the trees are changing. Man, that's right there.
Ashton didn't like it because he forgot to bring his coat and he was cold, but it is a fun trip otherwise.
Hey, all right, listen, I brought a coat. All right, but
our last trip up there was pretty.
Mike, I got hooked up with the equipment staff, gave me a nice coat. There's a picture of me with my nice North Texas rain jacket on. They made me give it back, though. Damn it, I was really hoping to sneak that back on. I flew separately.
That last trip
was one of the best road games I've ever been to.
Man, and that trip with that wind and that fall and those how often do you get a stadium where the leaves float into the stadium? Onto the field because the wind. It was a perfect. So I'm happy to have them on there. Yeah, we could definitely get beat. I hate sitting in the end zone there, but it was a great game.
My point on UTSA,
you get a nice T. Gorey push off for a touchdown. He shoves the guy, grabs the ball, and stands there.
My point on UTSA is that I think I was watching Jeff Traylor in his post game, and they're all down and depressed. But the thing is, and they've got a guy. I think they play at Tennessee this coming week. But he's like, the goal is to get to that first game in conference, and you're undefeated. You know what I mean? It's like conference is what counts because that's you get a second chance. And so for me, I kind of look at it like having 2 weeks off after a win to work on things. Then you've got Abilene Christian, which you should be able to take care of. God help us if we don't. But we go into conference, but potentially at least at 2-2, at 500, where at the beginning of the season, man, people were calling for Eric's head. You know what I mean? So to me, it seems like we can position ourselves with this pretty nicely.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys had La Tech as a win. I had that as like a toss up. I had the FIU game as a win. So I was hoping to get to 2-2. After the first 4 games, after Abilene Christian to beat 2-2, but not like this. So that's kind of because Louisiana Tech's such a freaking toss up.
Mhm.
But yeah, if we can, I think we can beat Temple. So yeah, if we after Navy, I mean, if we definitely should beat Abilene Christian. If we don't, like Harry said, God help us. But we got a rough stretch, Navy, Temple, Tulane, Memphis. I mean, that's a different schedule than we're used to seeing. Those are all pretty quality teams, or at least quality programs. At least recently, they've all been pretty good, and they've
Mhm.
got a little bit of pedigree coming in. They're all good on some level. A few years ago, Temple was really good. Not what I mean, relatively speaking, but
Well, okay, let's
hard game.
let's let's back up and kind of look at obviously the Florida International was a mess, but um the Cal game we got drilled pretty bad, but Cal's had a decent. I mean, they played Auburn pretty close, like lost by like 4 points or something. So yeah, they're 2-1, but they beat Idaho this week. But that Auburn game was pretty close, so it's not like we were playing a real pushover there. I mean, you could say Cal was down, but they're definitely not real far down when you're playing Auburn that close. So I don't. What we'll see what we can do, but with the defense, it's just got to improve week by week, or it's going to be a long stretch coming with SMU, UTSA, coming into the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the adjustments they made between FIU to La Tech, I mean, I understand we still gave up 37 points, but for 3 quarters, the defense played very well. I mean, yes, we gave up 24, whatever it was in the fourth quarter, but seeing that kind of adjustment over 1 week, I think now that the staff's got a chance for 2 weeks to really try to dial some stuff in, get some stuff fixed. And then you've got that chance. Abilene Christian, they were undefeated until they lost to Incarnate Word. So to me, they've got a good quarterback. Their quarterback come from Texas Tech. I don't think it's your normal FCS pushover game, but I still think it's a good game that you can, after a 2-week break, maybe kind of have another good showing, build some more confidence heading into to conference play. But yeah, like I said, Abilene Christian was looking like a pretty tough game until they lost to Incarnate Word last week. So still, I think after a 2-week break, we should be able to get to 2-2 starting and kind of go what Harry said. I mean, playing some of these teams later in the year, I mean, we saw UTSA is not the same team without Frank Harris. Tulane's quarterback's hurt right now. You look at some of these teams on the schedule, you don't want to look too far ahead, but I mean, SMU, I mean, any of these quarterbacks go down, it's a completely different team. So, I mean, I do think that Chandler Rogers continues to play. The defense continues to improve each week. There's going to be some of these games on the back end of the schedule that we had marked as L's that I think we're going to have a chance to, play in and may have a chance to come out to a W. Because if they end up being shootouts, if we get our quarterback figured out, this offense has weapons. This offense has had weapons for a couple years now and can be deadly. So, I mean, if it happens to get in a shootout with some of these teams, I like our chances.
So Frank Harris is out for that Tennessee game, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, they're holding him out until conference is what basically they said. I mean, I think that Tennessee, they're basically writing off. I think that they don't expect to. They're trying to keep him as healthy as possible going into conference because they know. I mean, without him, they're not near.
It's a different team.
It's a totally different team.
Yeah, there's a lot. We've seen years like that too. So that's going to be.
How long has he been there?
7 years.
I feel like he's been. Yeah,
7. This is his seventh season.
It's like some shit where he's just there and he's there and he's there and it's like.
He's the only football player with tenure at UTSA. That's what
he signed the year after Mason Fine.
Yep.
Wow.
God, Mason's been gone for 10 years, 12 years?
Yeah, it feels like it. Yeah.
Feels like a lifetime.
I think.
What if he stays injured? What if he stayed injured this year and found another medical red shirt again? Next season.
Mason Fine's going to be in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame before Frank Harris graduates.
Exactly, before he graduates.
There's a guy in I don't know what school it is, but he's in his 8th season of college football.
Oh, wow.
this year. I saw
There's a lot of these guys. Every game they'll
COVID
say
year, the transfer,
yes,
and
the
the
COVID
and
changed
injury.
everything.
COVID year, but man, the COVID year was literally 4 seasons ago now. It's like that's crazy to me.
The COVID year was really 2 years, if you think about it. It was like 2
it really
years.
was because they had to.
But I mean, but everybody got the free year. And
Right.
then you can get the transfer year, then you can get the medical red shirt
Yep.
year, then you get the red shirt year. It's like,
and they were handing
like,
out medical red shirts like candy. They're not doing that anymore.
Case
Remember
Keenum.
that? North Carolina's coach went ape about a guy not getting. They're not handing them out like they used to either.
Max Brown?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like when we came back from COVID, college football was different. I understand the transfer portal was already in place, but to me, it seems like that was kind of a complete lane change, and things have just changed in college football. People are, the transfer portal is just a revolving door now. And it's just, I feel like COVID really, the before and after COVID is going to define differences in college football in the future. It just seems like it's come out that way.
And bringing it
it's semi-pro now.
Bringing it back to a North Texas perspective, though, I would say this, and Evan, you and I are a little long in the tooth, so we can say this, but this schedule is exactly what we wanted. Every single, remember in the old days where you had, oh boy, we're playing Middle Tennessee and, whoever it was, every single game on the schedule, like I was just thinking about Rice. A lot of people on the board were like, well, Rice is going to be a win. I don't know that that's the case anymore. I think Rice could be a really tough game for us.
Well, Rice is they're good. Yeah.
Well, and this is the thing that I'm going to get yelled at, so I might as well just get yelled at now. Maybe all three of you can go. I don't like it when any of us, our fan base, has that kind of, Rice is going to be like, why? Rice might be saying that about us.
Yeah.
We don't go out there and win bowl championships every year.
I remember when we wanted to take a crack.
Rice has a conference championship recently, and we don't. You're right. They have one in 2012. We don't have a Conference USA championship. So it's just one of those things where when I hear that holding us to this standard that we don't, there isn't any proof that we should really be on that level yet. Do I want to be in that level? Sure, but I'm not going to sit here and say, like somebody says Rice has a QB. They do. It's good. It's good QB.
Do you think if Rice has a player, Rice has a quarterback that could could transfer, somebody could want to pick him up, right? He's not a senior, I don't think, right? This QB that's come up at Rice?
He might be, right? He might be out. He might be out.
Yeah, JT Daniels, the guy that Z-Man's talking about, is actually the guy. I think he started out at USC, maybe Georgia, West Virginia, and now he's at Rice. So I'm pretty sure this is last year. It's like his fourth team.
Yeah, that might be the case. That's the same JT Daniels. Oh my gosh, that's right. Yeah, because
is this going to be
Georgia
and the NFL? Right? They're going to name what 4 schools they played college at. Offensive lineman, Rice, USC, Middle Tennessee.
Nah, they'll just go high school. They'll do the high school game like, oh yeah, Oak Grove, and it's like, okay, cool, Oak Grove, great.
Yeah.
Or Baltimore,
various.
Let me just say that.
Various colleges.
Yeah. A lot.
Agree. Various colleges finished my degree at Phoenix.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so weird.
I was trying to post this one, then Harry had to chime in. Sorry.
UGA. That's right. Yeah, he was recruited at Georgia, and then when he got hurt, that's when Stetson rolled in 3 years ago.
Yeah, so looks from UGA to West Virginia to Rice. I think he was doing that for purely academic reasons.
Yeah, he's moving up the food chain.
Well,
as
there we go. There's
diplomas.
the USC thing. Yeah.
Oh, USC. Okay, so then he went slumming and then came back.
Harrell. This is the year that Graham Harrell, that Slovak kid, ended up being like really good. Caden Slovak or Caden something, and he was the 4th string. And they got 2 guys went out. One guy was like a concussion, then 2 ACLs, bang, 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 and then Graham Harrell started killing it with this kid. And that's the year that I think they competed for the Pac-12 championship, maybe, and lost. but they
Right.
rode that dude out, and but JT was the I think was the first or second guy on that list of guys that got injured, and then they ended up with that Slovak kid who was good. Yeah, that's when I think that was Graham's first year at USC. And now Graham's at Purdue, by the way, which I missed.
Mhm.
And you know who's coaching Purdue, right? Does everybody remember who's coaching Purdue?
No.
No?
Ryan.
So if you go back,
Ryan.
Walter. So if you go back to Harry and Evan will remember this. Remember the first time you guys interviewed me because I was doing Beyond the Green and you were asking about the coaching staff and some of the guys were new. And I said, man, I love this Ryan Walters guy. I think he's going to be – I really want him to be a guy that comes back to North Texas as the head coach. Well, he just skipped over coming back to North Texas. He got the DC gig. He was a DB coach at Missouri, got the DC gig in Illinois, had 2 awesome years at Illinois. They were in the top 10 in defense last year that nobody really knows about. And now he's a coach at Purdue. So that's a guy that I've always loved. He's awesome. And
he was the best recruiter. He was the best recruiter on the entire staff under McCarney.
I mean, we only had him for 1 year.
Another North Texas to Purdue, Coach P, our old special teams coach at Purdue too.
Petrelli. Coach Petrelli.
And
I've got one of his shirts right now.
At Colorado State, who just lost to Colorado. It's kind of interesting.
I stayed up and watched that game, thinking I'd get to bed at a decent time. That was a mistake.
It was great. It was such a great game.
Man, I tell you,
we still talking about North Texas here?
Yeah. What is this? What is this show?
Hey, the good thing about it, I will say this about Ross: unless we make it to the conference championship, they're not on the schedule, so we won't have to play them. But if we both go undefeated in conference, we may meet them in the American Conference Championship.
Oh, Rice is not on our schedule?
No.
Really?
No.
Oh, wow.
Look at our schedule. We got like Temple, and Temple's coming to North Texas. I don't remember playing Temple.
Temple, Memphis, and UTSA are I believe the 3.
Temple's not very good, though.
I mean,
are they?
but to your point earlier about I do love the schedule. I like seeing some of these different teams.
I do
like
too.
seeing these teams that again have some pedigree. You know, and again, Temple 10 years ago was like, ugh, but like, they've been decent the past few years, and
well, there's still a name.
They got guys in the NFL too.
This is a schedule that 10 years ago we would have killed to have this schedule. I mean, Cal, SMU, Tulane,
Tulsa,
Temple, Tulsa. This is a schedule we would have wanted to have, and now we're
10 years ago. We had Tulane 10 years ago.
No, I know, but I'm just saying
for one season
schedule this whole schedule is good. This is what we wanted. We're there now, and we got some growing pains. So anyway, all right. So next week's an off week. We got a little downtime, and then Abilene Christian. We hope we can take care of business there. Anything else before we close this out?
I just wanted to give one last shout out to the kicker, Rauschenberg. Man, he is going to be a real weapon this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't know that much about him, but he looks legit. Like, you got to say that about North Texas.
I don't want to be the days of Toby going where the biggest excitement of the day is when it's either time to punt or kick, because that's our best, most exciting player out on the field.
We always had our All-American was always a punter, but
it was always a punter or kicker that we were Balzadul is out. Oh, here he comes. Let's see what he can do. Yeah, that was although I thought we were going to see him try for a 60-yarder there at the end of the game. Thank God we didn't have to sweat that one out. But yeah, that's definitely a good point here. He had a great game.
And
so,
shout out
JD.
I was going to say shout out punting too, because I mean the Cal game, the punting was atrocious, and Sawyer Evans had 2 kicks the other night, averaged 60 yards. Both of them are over 50, and one of them was the one that pinned them down on their 3-yard line. So
yeah, that was definitely good. That's a good point. Definitely. All right, JD, Last Stand Hats. We want to give them a shout out here.
Yep, laststandshats.com/GoMeanGreen. I'm actually rocking one tonight.
You probably should wear it the front way around. If you that is a good. That's a classic golfer's hat with the little green line there. Yeah, I'm digging that.
I like that. I like the mean green.
And we were 1-0 since I purchased it. So everybody go buy Last Stand's hats. We'll go undefeated the rest of the year. It is side note. It is a big week for recruiting. There's gonna be a ton of kids in this weekend for official visits. Hopefully, I have a list on that going into the weekend on Go Mean Green. But yeah, I think there's definitely some big recruiting battles going on right now. So it'll be exciting to see who they get on campus this weekend and see if we can get some commits.
Will
So
there be any at the
let's,
ACU game?
What's up?
Will there be a lot of the ACU game too? That's usually that fourth game of the season is when I would see a lot of recruits coming in.
Yeah, so I
Back in
think
the
there'll be a
day.
lot of. I think just because there's off week, I think bringing in some kids a visual visit so the staff can actually spend some time with them. I think that was kind of the plan all along,
Sure.
just off week. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think there'll be a ton of kids there for the ACU game, and then I'm sure probably the Memphis game. Those two games, I could see trying to get a lot of kids in because I'm sure the crowd should be good for both of them. But yeah.
So let's table this for the next one here, because obviously we're not having one next week because we don't have anything to talk about between now and then. But I'd like JD to bring up on the next pod about how recruiting's changed because of the portal. How does that factor into who we bring in, how we bring them in, and what does that do to the recruiting schedule and process? I think that's probably has to have changed because of the portal's vast use by everybody now.
Yeah. And not to change the subject, but shout out to women's soccer team. They did lose to Memphis the other night, 0-2, but I think they got ranked today. And like I said,
it's their best start since 2015 or 16 or something.
Yeah. And there's some pretty good, speaking of transfers, they've got some stud transfers on that team, and it looks to be probably one of the best North Texas teams in a while. So pretty exciting stuff
That's
there.
Good. That's one thing we've always taken for granted. I say we take it for granted. We give them their props, but it's like if we don't have a really good soccer team, then it's like, wait, what happened? It's almost like expected now that we're always on top of it, unlike all the other sports.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, with that, we will call it a day. See everybody in 2 weeks.
Score predictions.
We're doing score predictions?
Somebody asked us the score predictions. Come on, Evan.
Oh, gosh.
I'm not going to against Abilene Christian in 2 weeks. I'm going to say 28-10. No. I'm going to say
in the first quarter.
That's exactly. Oh man, I'm going to maybe 34-21. How about that? I don't think I think the defense is going to let more in. Unfortunately, I don't think they're there yet. 34-10.
Okay.
I'm going 52-28.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
45 to 23.
It's not fun
It's
to go
like you
last
were-
with three other people because then you really don't have like I
Then you mix
had
it
like
up.
45-21 in my head. But
Well, I think the
guess
real
that's
troubling
kind of-
part was watching Harry, and he's like, he looks up at something and then says 48, and then looks up at it again. It's like he has it written on his wall. What do you think? What did it?
Yeah.
Oh, what did I?
I
get
was
wrong?
looking at their
All right.
schedule. I was looking at their
Wow.
schedule
Yeah.
a little bit. So they score some points. They've scored us some points in some games. So
Yeah, I
Oh, good.
unfortunately,
That'll be
I
fun for
unfortunately
the
think we'll give up.
defense.
I think we'll give up 30. Now I think that, which I think that we'll score about 45 or 50. I think the offense will get moving. I think we'll run the ball really well against them. I think we'll just have more horses. I think we'll be pretty motivated. We'll be pretty well rested. It gives Chandler an extra week as a starter, which is nice. I think that can't go, understated too. That extra time going into that game is always pretty
Mhm.
great. Although Dejan had extra time before the UAB game. So there's
Oh man,
that.
there he goes with those negative
Remember that.
waves, man. Always with the negative
I'm
waves.
just saying, man, when you had to watch it, when you had to just live it again, then do a show and relive it, like that's PTSD. All right, just remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's PTSD.
Oh, hey, good
I
point
go on the
here.
podcast with you guys, and then I do the show.
ACU plays Central Arkansas Saturday on ESPN Plus, so you can get. I'm sure they'll. I'm not digging that every time North Texas plays, there seems to be all the other games I'd like to watch. And I had nothing to watch all day that I was so excited. And then Texas Tech, and North Tech. I mean, all these games I wanted to see were all at the same time. So.
Brian Martin had said Maverick McIver. You remember him, JD? We recruited him, I believe, at one time.
Yeah,
is their quarterback.
Ended up at Tech and then transferred in. So he's not your typical FCS quarterback. He's a pretty talented kid.
I mean, nowadays that's just kind of what it is now, right? Like if you don't get the FCS quarterbacks are guys that just fizzled out somewhere else, or didn't get a shot, or just left early, or did whatever. It's kind of, you don't get the kid who like works his way up from like a walk on and then getting the Mason Fines of the FCS world. Getting the offers, decided to go to a local FCS school, and then just blow up. You don't
funny,
see that as much now, which is kind of sad.
Incarnate Word's quarterback was an A&M transfer. Incarnate Word's quarterbacks at Washington State, probably one of the best Power 5 quarterbacks that nobody talks about. Cam Ward. I mean, it is completely quarterback carousel, however you want to call it. But
free agency.
Yeah,
free agency.
exactly.
Man. That's really all it is.
Yep.
And
It's
it's
exactly
a semi-pro league. It's the NFL minor leagues. It's not college football anymore, unfortunately.
Casey
Sorry.
Thompson
Bye,
went to
everybody.
Casey Thompson, former Texas quarterback, went to Nebraska, was at FAU. Actually tore his ACL this week, so he's out for the year for Tom
He's
Herman.
out for the season.
So,
All right, guys. Well, with that, we'll end it. Go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.
go Mean Green.